I watched my father's empire burn to the ground in 48 hours. And the only person who didn't abandon me was the 8-year-old son of the woman who cleaned my toilets. Now I'm sitting in a one-bedroom apartment in the bad part of town, staring at eviction notices, and the only food in my fridge is a sandwich that little Leo brought me this morning from his school cafeteria. My name is David Cole, and 3 months ago, I had everything. A penthouse overlooking the city, cars that cost more than most people's houses, a tech company worth $3 billion. People smiled when I walked into rooms, not because they liked me, but because I had power. You're probably wondering how someone goes from billionaire to broke that fast. Trust me, I've asked myself that same question about 10,000 times. But before I tell you how I lost everything, I need to tell you about the day I realized I'd been living a lie my entire life. Hey friends, thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to comment where you are watching from. Someone close to you might be watching too. Like, share, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a story. Make sure to watch till the very end, because the final twist is something you definitely don't want to miss. So let's continue. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were board meetings, and I loved board meetings. That's where I got to remind everyone who was in charge. That's where grown men and women nodded at everything I said like I was some kind of genius. I walked into that conference room at 9 in the morning wearing a suit that cost $12,000. My shoes alone were worth more than what some people made in a month. I had my coffee in hand, the expensive kind that gets delivered to your office in a silver pot. I felt like a king. The board members were already seated, 12 faces looking at me. But something was wrong. They weren't smiling. They were staring at me like I was a stranger who'd wandered into the wrong building. "David," said Susan, the board chair. Her voice was cold. "We need to talk." I sat down, still not understanding. What's going on? That's when James walked in. My best friend since college. The guy who'd been my roommate when we were eating ramen noodles and dreaming about success. The guy who'd stood next to me when I signed my first big contract. The guy I'd made vice president because I trusted him with my life. He wasn't looking at me. That should have been my first clue. "David," Susan continued, "we've discovered some serious issues with the company finances. Money missing, contracts altered, projects that don't exist but somehow have huge budgets." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" "We're talking about fraud," she said, "and all the evidence points to you." The next 30 minutes were a nightmare. They showed me documents with my signature, bank transfers from company accounts to offshore locations, emails that looked like they came from me, authorizing payments for fake projects, contract changes that benefited me personally. Every single piece of evidence was fake. I knew it was fake because I hadn't done any of it, but it all looked real. Someone had spent months, maybe years, setting this up, making it look like I'd been stealing from my own company. This is insane," I said, my voice shaking. "I didn't do any of this. Someone's framing me." "The evidence is pretty clear, David," Susan said. She didn't sound sad or angry, just tired, like I'd disappointed her. "James," I turned to my best friend, desperate. "Tell them. You know me. You know I wouldn't do this." James finally looked at me. His eyes were empty. "I'm sorry, David. I wanted to believe in you, but the proof is right there." That's when I knew. The way he said it. The way he couldn't quite meet my eyes for more than a second. The tiny smile that flickered at the corner of his mouth. He'd done this. My best friend had destroyed me. By 9:30, I was standing outside the building in that same $12,000 suit, but this time, security guards were making sure I didn't come back in. My keycard didn't work. My passwords were changed. My office was being packed up by strangers. The company I'd built from my college dorm room? Gone. Legally stolen right out from under me while I stood there in shock. I called my lawyer. He said he'd look into it, but didn't sound hopeful. I called the investors who'd backed me from the beginning. They didn't answer. I called my girlfriend, Ashley, the woman I'd been planning to propose to next month, the woman who said she loved me more than anything. She texted back instead of calling. I can't deal with this right now. I need space. We're done. Just like that. 2 years together, finished in a text message. I found out later, much later, that she'd been sleeping with James for 3 months. She'd probably known about his plan to take over the company. Maybe she'd even helped him. I'll never know for sure, and honestly, I stopped caring after a while. That first week was a blur. I hired lawyers to fight back, to prove my innocence. They were expensive, really expensive. I sold my cars to pay them. Then I sold my watch collection. Then the art on my penthouse walls. Then the penthouse itself. The legal bills kept coming. And James was smart. He'd covered his tracks perfectly. Every fake document had layers of evidence supporting it. Every lie he'd told had 2 more lies backing it up. Proving the truth would take years and millions of dollars I didn't have. My parents died when I was 19. Car accident on a rainy night. They were coming home from dinner, celebrating their anniversary. A drunk driver ran a red light. They died instantly. At least, that's what the police told me. I hope it was instant. I hope they didn't suffer. I built my company to make them proud, to prove that their son could do something meaningful with his life. Every success felt like a gift I was giving to their memory. Every milestone was me saying, "Look, Mom and Dad, look what I did." Now I had nothing to show them. Nothing to prove I'd been worth their sacrifice and love. Just a pile of legal documents showing the world thought I was a thief and a fraud. Within 6 weeks, I'd gone from $3 billion to $300 in my checking account. Every asset sold, every investment liquidated, every favor called in. All of it gone, swallowed by legal fees and the cost of trying to clear my name. The only place I could afford was a tiny apartment in Riverside District. If you don't know Riverside, consider yourself lucky. It's the kind of neighborhood where you hear gunshots on Friday nights and pretend they're fireworks. Where the streetlights are all broken and nobody bothers to fix them. Where people don't make eye contact because everyone's trying to survive their own problems. My apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that should have been condemned 20 years ago. The stairs creaked like they might collapse. The hallway smelled like mildew and something else I couldn't identify and didn't want to. My front door had 3 different locks, which should have made me feel safe, but actually just reminded me how dangerous the neighborhood was. Inside wasn't much better. 1 room that served as bedroom, living room, and kitchen. A bathroom so small, I had to stand sideways to close the door. A window that looked out at a brick wall. The walls were thin enough that I could hear every conversation, every fight, every moment of my neighbors' lives. There was a brown stain on the ceiling above the bed. It looked like water damage, or maybe something worse. Every night I'd lay there staring at it, wondering if it was going to fall on me while I slept. Wondering if that would actually be better than waking up to face another day of my ruined life. But it was cheap. $200 a month. That's all I could afford. That's how far I'd fallen. I spent the first 2 weeks in that apartment doing nothing. I'd wake up around noon, not because I'd been out late, but because I'd been lying awake until dawn, thinking about everything I'd lost. I'd open my laptop and stare at job listings. Every single one might as well have said, "David Cole need not apply," because that's what happened when I submitted my resume. My reputation was destroyed. James had made sure of that. Word spread fast in the tech industry. Everyone knew my name, and everyone believed I was a thief. Nobody would hire me. Not for executive positions. Not for entry-level jobs. Not even for unpaid internships. I was toxic. Untouchable. Some days I'd skip the job search entirely. I'd just lay on the mattress on the floor I couldn't afford a bed frame and stare at that brown stain on the ceiling. I'd think about my parents. Wonder what they'd think of me now. Wonder if they'd be disappointed or if they'd understand that sometimes life just crushes you and there's nothing you can do about it. I stopped eating regularly. Not on purpose at first. I just kept forgetting. When you're depressed, when you've lost everything, food stops mattering. Your stomach stops sending hunger signals. Or maybe your brain stops receiving them. I'd realize at 8 at night that I hadn't eaten all day. And by then, I'd just think, what's the point? I'll eat tomorrow. I was living on vending machine crackers and whatever was cheapest at the corner store. Ramen noodles, white bread, peanut butter if I was feeling fancy. I'd lost 20 pounds in a month. My expensive suits hung on me like tents, not that I had anywhere to wear them anymore. That's where I was, physically and mentally, when I met Rosa and her son, Leo. Rosa lived in the apartment next to mine. I'd seen her a few times in the hallway. She was maybe 40, with black hair starting to show gray at the roots. She had these deep lines around her eyes, the kind you get from years of hard work and not enough sleep. Her hands were rough, calloused, the hands of someone who'd spent their life doing physical labor. But she always smiled, even when she looked exhausted, even when she was carrying heavy bags of groceries up 3 flights of broken stairs. She'd see me in the hallway and say, "Good morning," or "Good evening," and her smile was real. Not the fake smiles I'd gotten from people in my old life, real warmth. I never smiled back. I'd just nod and hurry into my apartment. I didn't want to talk to anyone, didn't want to explain my life, didn't want pity or questions or kindness. I just wanted to be left alone with my failure. Leo I noticed because he was loud, not in a bad way, just in the way 8-year-old boys are loud. I'd hear him in the hallway after school, telling his mom about his day. His voice was high and excited, always talking about something he'd learned or some game he'd played at recess. Through the thin walls, I'd hear him at night. He'd be reading out loud, practicing for school, or he'd be explaining dinosaur facts to his mom. The kid loved dinosaurs. Absolutely loved them. I learned more about prehistoric creatures through that thin wall than I ever wanted to know. "Mom, did you know that the Stegosaurus had a brain the size of a walnut? But it was still really smart for a dinosaur. It had these plates on its back that helped it control its body temperature. Isn't that cool?" And Rosa would say, "That's very cool, baby. Now finish your homework." Their life was simple. Rosa worked nights cleaning office buildings, the same kind of buildings I used to own. She'd leave around 6 in the evening, wearing a uniform with her name stitched on it. She wouldn't get home until 3 or 4 in the morning. I knew because I was always awake, staring at the ceiling, and I'd hear her exhausted footsteps in the hallway. During the day, while Leo was at school, she'd sleep. Then she'd wake up, make dinner, help him with homework, and head back out to work. Day after day, week after week. She was working herself to death to keep a roof over their heads and food in their stomachs. And somehow, she still had energy to smile. I'd been in that apartment for 2 weeks when there was a knock on my door one evening. It was around 7. I was lying on my mattress, staring at the ceiling, thinking about nothing and everything. I almost didn't answer. I didn't want to deal with whatever it was. Probably the landlord wanting to know when I'd pay next month's rent. Or maybe someone complaining about noise, even though I barely moved most days. But the knocking continued. Not aggressive, just persistent, polite, but determined. I finally dragged myself up and opened the door. Leo was standing there. He was small for 8, skinny in a way that made me think he didn't always get enough to eat. He had these huge brown eyes that seemed too big for his face. His hair stuck up in the back, refusing to lay flat. He was wearing jeans with holes in the knees and a dinosaur t-shirt that had been washed so many times the dinosaur was starting to fade. In his hands was a plastic container, the cheap kind you get from the dollar store. "Hi," he said, looking up at me. "My mom made too much rice and chicken. She said you might be hungry." I stared at him. This kid I'd never spoken to was standing at my door, offering me food. "I'm fine," I said. My voice came out rough. I hadn't talked to anyone in days. Leo tilted his head, studying me. "You don't look fine. You look sad. My mom says when people are sad, they forget to eat. So here." He pushed the container into my hands. It was still warm. I could smell the rice, the chicken, some kind of spices that made my mouth water even though I hadn't felt hungry in weeks. "I don't need," I started to say. "Everyone needs to eat," Leo interrupted. He said it matter-of-factly, like he was explaining something obvious to someone slow. "That's just how bodies work. So you should eat this. Mom's a really good cook. You'll like it." Then he turned and ran back to his apartment before I could say anything else. I stood there holding the container, confused and uncomfortable. I didn't want charity, didn't want pity. I was David Cole. I'd had billions. I didn't need a cleaning lady and her kid feeling sorry for me. But I was hungry, so hungry. My stomach was eating itself, and the food smelled so good. I went back inside, sat on the floor because I didn't have a table, and opened the container. Rice, chicken cooked with tomatoes and peppers, some kind of beans on the side. Simple food. Poor people food, my old self would have thought. It was the best thing I'd ever tasted. Not because it was fancy, it wasn't, but because it was real, made by real hands for a real purpose, to feed someone who needed feeding. No pretense, no show, just food made with care. I ate every single bite. Then I sat there on the floor of my terrible apartment with an empty plastic container in my hands, and I cried. Big, ugly tears that I'd been holding back for weeks. Because a child I didn't know had seen that I was suffering and tried to help. I washed the container and left it outside Rosa's door that night with a note that just said, "Thank you." 3 days later, Leo knocked again. This time he had a sandwich wrapped in aluminum foil. "I got extra lunch at school," he said. "The cafeteria lady likes me. She always gives me extra. But I already ate mine. So you can have this one." I knew he was lying. I knew that sandwich was probably his own lunch, saved for me instead of eaten. But what was I supposed to do? Hurt this kid's feelings by refusing? "Thanks, Leo," I said, taking the sandwich. He grinned. "You remembered my name." "Yeah, I heard your mom calling you." "What's your name?" "David." "Okay, Mr. David. Do you like dinosaurs?" And just like that, we were friends. Leo started knocking on my door every few days after that. Sometimes he'd bring food, always with some excuse about having too much or getting extra. Sometimes he'd just knock and ask if he could come in and talk. I should have said no. I should have kept my door closed. I was a mess. I was depressed. I was barely holding on to my sanity. What business did I have talking to an 8-year-old kid? But I couldn't say no, because honestly, Leo's visits were the only thing I had to look forward to, the only moments in my day that didn't feel like drowning. He'd sit on my floor, the same floor where I slept, ate, and wasted my life, and tell me about school, about his teacher, Miss Karen, who was really nice, but gave too much homework, about his best friend at school, Danny, who could burp the alphabet, about the bully, Trevor, who picked on smaller kids but was actually scared of spiders. He'd tell me dinosaur facts. So many dinosaur facts. Did you know that velociraptors were actually only about the size of a turkey? Movies make them way bigger. And they had feathers. Isn't that weird? Dinosaurs with feathers. That is weird, I'd say. And I'd realize I was almost smiling, actually engaging with another human, feeling something other than despair. One day, about 3 weeks after we'd met, Leo asked me, "What do you do, Mr. David?" "Nothing right now," I said. "But what did you used to do?" I hesitated. I didn't want to talk about my past. Didn't want to explain how I'd lost everything. But Leo was looking at me with those big, curious eyes, genuinely interested. "I had a company," I finally said. "A big one." Leo's whole face lit up. "Really? That's so cool. I love computers. We have them at school in the library. I'm learning to type." "That's good. Typing is important. Can you teach me about computers? Like, the real stuff? Not just typing?" I looked at this kid, this excited, curious, brilliant kid who saw something interesting in the broken man sitting on the floor of a crappy apartment. When was the last time someone had looked at me and seen something valuable? When was the last time someone wanted to learn from me because they thought I had something worth teaching? "Yeah," I said, and my voice cracked a little. "Yeah, I can teach you about computers." That's how it started. That's when my life began to change, though I didn't know it yet. Leo would come over after school, usually around 4. Rosa worked nights, so she'd be sleeping. And Leo was supposed to do his homework and stay quiet. Instead, he'd knock on my door, and I'd let him in, and we'd sit on the floor with my laptop. I started with the basics. What is a computer? How does it think? What's the difference between hardware and software? Leo soaked it up like a sponge. He'd ask questions that showed he was really thinking, really processing. Not just memorizing, but understanding. So the computer doesn't actually think like we think? He asked one day. No, it just follows instructions really fast. But if it's just following instructions, how can it be smart? That's the interesting part. If you write really good instructions, and you write enough of them, the computer can do things that look like thinking. It can learn patterns. It can make decisions based on rules you give it. Can you show me how to write instructions? So I taught him basic coding. Started with simple stuff. How to make the computer print words on the screen. How to do math. How to make decisions using if-then statements. He was 8 years old. Most 8-year-olds can barely sit still for 10 minutes. Leo would sit with me for 2 hours, completely focused, learning to code. And he was good at it. Scary good. He'd pick up concepts that took my college interns weeks to understand. He'd see patterns I had to point out to other people. His brain just worked in a way that made sense for programming. You're really smart, Leo, I told him one day. He shrugged. My teachers say I'm smart too, but Trevor calls me a nerd. Being a nerd is good. Nerds run the world. Did you run the world, Mr. David? That question hit harder than he knew. I thought I did. Turns out I didn't. What happened? I'd never told anyone the full story, not in detail. But sitting there on the floor with this kid who'd shown me nothing but kindness, I found myself talking. I told him about James. About the betrayal. About losing everything. Leo listened to the whole thing, his face serious. When I finished, he was quiet for a minute. Then he said, "That man who took your company sounds mean." Yeah, he was. My dad was mean too. He left when I was 3. Mom says he didn't want to be a father. She says some people just aren't good, and that's not our fault. Your mom sounds smart. She is. She's the smartest person I know. He paused. Well, you're pretty smart too. You know all this computer stuff. Thanks, buddy. Mr. David, can I tell you something? Of course. I'm really glad you moved here. I know this place isn't nice like where you used to live, but I like having you here. You're like the dad I don't have. Except you're my friend. Is that weird? My throat got tight. My eyes started burning. No, Leo, that's not weird. I like having you around too. And I meant it. This kid had somehow become the most important part of my day. The reason I got up. The reason I didn't just give up completely. Rosa caught on eventually. She'd see Leo going into my apartment and coming out hours later, excited about computers and coding. One evening, about a month after Leo and I started our lessons, she knocked on my door. I opened it, and she was standing there still in her work uniform. She looked tired, like always, but there was something else in her face. Worry, maybe. Mr. Cole, she said, can we talk? Of course, and please, call me David. She came in, looked around at my bare apartment. One mattress, one laptop, nothing else. She didn't judge, though, just nodded like she understood. Leo talks about you all the time, she said. He says you're teaching him about computers. I am. I hope that's okay. He's a really smart kid. It's more than okay. It's... She stopped, and her eyes got wet. His father left when he was 3, just walked out one day and never came back. No call. No letter. No birthday cards. Nothing. Leo doesn't have any men in his life who treat him like he matters. No grandfather, no uncles, nobody. And then you show up, and you spend time with him, and you teach him things, and you listen when he talks. She wiped her eyes. I worked nights, cleaning toilets in office buildings. I barely finished high school. I can't teach him the things you can. I can't give him what you're giving him. So thank you. Thank you for seeing that he's special. Thank you for caring. Now my eyes were wet too. Rosa, he's giving me way more than I'm giving him. I was in a really dark place when I moved here. Really dark. Your son saved my life. He gave me a reason to wake up. He reminded me that I have something valuable to offer. So thank you. Thank you for raising such an amazing kid. Thank you for the food you keep bringing me, even though you barely have enough for yourself. Thank you for treating me like a human being when everyone else decided I was worthless. We stood there in my empty apartment, both crying, both grateful. You're always welcome at our place for dinner, Rosa said. We don't have much, but what we have, we share. I'd like that, I said. From then on, I ate dinner with them most nights. Rosa would cook simple meals, rice, beans, chicken, vegetables, nothing fancy, but it was always delicious, always made with care. And always there was enough, even though I knew they were stretching their food to include me. We'd sit at their tiny table, they actually had a table, which was more than I had, and Leo would talk about his day, about school and dinosaurs and whatever new thing he'd learned. Rosa would ask him about homework. I'd help him with math problems after dinner. It felt like family, like the family I'd lost when my parents died, like the family I'd thought I might have someday with Ashley before she showed her true colors, like something real and solid and good. But underneath all of this, underneath the small happiness I'd found, there was still the crushing weight of my failure. I was 2 months behind on rent. The landlord had given me an eviction notice. I had 1 week to come up with $1,800, or I'd be on the street. I tried everything to get money. Every job application got rejected. Every gig economy job required things I didn't have anymore. A car, a smartphone with data, references that weren't tainted. I'd sold everything I owned except my laptop, and I couldn't sell that because it was my only connection to any possible future. I applied to fast food restaurants, grocery stores, warehouses, gas stations. Nobody wanted me. I was overqualified, which apparently meant they thought I'd leave the second I found something better, or they Googled my name and saw the articles about my fraud allegations and decided I was too risky to hire. I was going to be homeless, and I couldn't tell Rosa or Leo. How could I? They'd try to help, and they couldn't. They were barely surviving themselves. I couldn't take money from a woman who cleaned toilets to feed her son. I'd rather sleep on the street. So I kept quiet. I kept teaching Leo. I kept eating dinner with them. I kept pretending everything was okay, while inside I was screaming. Then, on a Wednesday afternoon, 5 days before I'd be evicted, Leo knocked on my door. He looked different. His usual excitement was replaced by something more intense, more focused. "Mr. David, I need to show you something important," he said. "What is it?" "Just come to my apartment, please." I followed him next door. Rosa was at work. The apartment was quiet. Leo led me to the corner where he did his homework, a tiny desk that was too small for him but all they could afford. On the desk was my old laptop, the one I'd been teaching him on, but the screen showed something I hadn't seen before. Lines and lines of code, complex stuff, way beyond anything I'd taught him. "Leo, what is this?" "I've been working on a project," he said. His voice was quiet but intense. Serious in a way I'd never heard from him before. "Remember when you told me about algorithms? About how computers can learn patterns and make predictions?" "Yeah, I remember." "Well, I've been thinking about that a lot, and I've been using the computers at the library after school. They let me stay there until Mom picks me up, and I've been watching videos and reading things online about machine learning and data analysis." "You've been teaching yourself machine learning?" I couldn't keep the shock out of my voice. "Kind of. I mean, I don't understand all of it, but I understand some of it, and I remembered everything you taught me about basic coding, so I tried to make something." He clicked through the program. It was rough, clearly made by someone still learning. There were inefficiencies that made me wince. There were comments in the code where he'd explained things to himself in a child's language, but the foundation was there. The logic was sound. He'd created a basic machine learning algorithm that could analyze data patterns. An 8-year-old kid had taught himself concepts that most adults with computer science degrees struggled with. "Leo, this is incredible. When did you? I've been working on it for 3 weeks, every day after school. I wanted to surprise you. Is it good? I know it's not perfect. But is the idea good? The idea is brilliant. And then something happened in my brain. A spark, a connection. The first moment of hope I'd felt since losing everything. I stared at that screen, at Leo's rough but promising code, and suddenly I saw something. An opportunity, a possibility, a way forward that I hadn't considered before. Leo, I said, my voice shaking, can I work on this with you? Can I take what you've started and expand it? His face broke into the biggest smile. Of course, that's what I wanted. I wanted us to build something together. I need to ask your mom first. This might take a lot of time. She'll say yes. She always says yes when it's about learning. He was right. When Rosa got home that night, I explained what Leo had created and what I wanted to do with it. She just smiled. If it helps him learn, if it helps you, then yes, do it. The next 4 days were a blur. I barely slept. Leo would go to school, and I'd code. He'd come home, and we'd work together. I'd explain what I was doing, and he'd ask questions that made me think harder, code better, see things from new angles. I took his algorithm and expanded it. I used every piece of knowledge I'd built over 15 years in technology. I created something new, something different from anything my old company had done. A program that could help small businesses analyze their data without expensive software. Something that took complex analytics and made them simple. Something that regular people could use without needing a degree or expensive consultants. It wasn't about making billions. It was about solving a real problem for real people. I'd been so focused on impressing investors and beating competitors in my old life that I'd forgotten what building should be about, creating something useful, something that helps. Rosa would bring us food while we worked. She'd stand in the doorway and watch us, her tired eyes getting wet again. You're good for each other, she said one night. You're teaching him to build things. He's teaching you to hope again. She was right. On Sunday, 2 days before my eviction, I launched the program, free, online, no charge. I just put it out there with a simple website explaining what it did. I posted about it everywhere I could think of. Tech forums, small business groups on social media, entrepreneur websites, anywhere that might care. Monday morning, I woke up and checked my website stats. 15 downloads overnight. Monday afternoon, 50 downloads. Monday evening, a small business owner in Texas posted a review on one of the forums. She said my program had helped her understand her sales patterns for the first time ever. That she'd been paying a consultant $300 a month for reports she couldn't understand, and my free program had done it better in 10 minutes. That review started getting shared. By Tuesday morning, thousands of people were downloading it. By Tuesday afternoon, my email was flooded. Small business owners thanking me, asking questions, telling me how much this helped them, offering to pay for premium features if I'd add them. By Tuesday night, I was staring at my laptop in disbelief, watching the download counter tick up and up and up. Wednesday morning, I woke up to an email that made my hands shake. It was from a venture capital firm in the city. A real one of the big ones. They'd seen my program. They'd seen the viral response. They'd looked into my background, knew about everything that had happened with James, and they said they didn't care about the allegations. They could see what I'd built. They could see it was real. They wanted to meet. They wanted to talk about funding. I read that email 5 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Then I ran next door and pounded on Rosa's door. She answered in her work uniform, about to leave for her night shift. David? What's wrong? Is Leo here? He's doing homework. What happened? Everything happened. Everything good. Can I see him? Leo came to the door, looking worried. Mr. David? Are you okay? We did it, I said. And I was laughing and crying at the same time. Your algorithm. What we built together. People love it. Thousands of people are using it. And a real investment company wants to fund it. Wants to turn it into a real business. We actually did something that matters." Leo's face transformed. He went from worried to confused to understanding to pure joy in about 3 seconds. Then he did something that made me lose it completely. He hugged me. This little kid who barely came up to my waist wrapped his arms around me and squeezed as hard as he could. "I knew you were special," he whispered. "I told my mom. I said Mr. David is special. He just doesn't remember it yet. But I knew. I always knew." Rosa was crying. I was crying. Leo was crying. We all stood there in that doorway in the worst apartment building in the worst neighborhood, crying like our hearts were breaking, except they weren't breaking, they were healing. The meeting with the venture capital firm happened Friday. I put on my one remaining good suit. It was too big now because I'd lost so much weight, but I didn't care. I walked into their downtown office with my head high. Their office was in the same area where my old building stood, where I used to work, where I used to have power. I could see my old building from their conference room window. But this time was different. I wasn't selling them smoke and mirrors. I wasn't promising potential. I was showing them something real, something that was already working, something that was already helping people. And I told them the truth, the whole truth, about losing my company, about James's betrayal, about being broke and evicted, about the 8-year-old kid next door who'd reminded me why I started building things in the first place. I thought the truth might scare them off. Instead, they leaned forward, interested, engaged. "The difference between you now and you before," said the lead partner, a woman named Rachel, "is that before you were building for ego. Now you're building for purpose. Purpose is what makes companies last." They funded me, $2 million initial investment, with an option for more if we hit certain milestones. I walked out of that building feeling like I could fly. For the first time in months, I had hope. Real hope. Not just survival, but the possibility of actually building something good again. But I did things differently this time. I wasn't going to repeat my mistakes. I set up the company right. I had lawyers check every document 3 times. I built in protections against someone doing to me what James had done. I made sure I could never be pushed out of my own company again. And I did something else, something the old me would never have done. I gave Rosa a job as office manager. $20 an hour plus benefits. Real health insurance. Paid vacation. Retirement contributions. "I don't know anything about running an office," she protested. "You ran a household on poverty wages while working night shifts," I said. "You kept your son fed, clothed, and happy with almost nothing. You managed time, money, and resources better than any MBA I ever hired. You're perfect for this job." She cried when she gave her 2-week notice at the cleaning company. Cried because she wouldn't have to scrub toilets anymore. Wouldn't have to work nights. Would actually see her son grow up instead of sleeping through his childhood. And for Leo, I did something that made me happier than any business success ever had. I set up a college fund in his name, $100,000, locked in a trust that nobody could touch. Not me. Not Rosa. Not anyone. It would grow with interest until he turned 18. "When you're ready for college," I told him, sitting in their apartment with Rosa holding his hand, "you'll have enough money to go anywhere you want. Study dinosaurs. Study computers, study art or music or anything that makes you happy. This money is yours. I'm not giving it to you as charity. I'm giving it to you as payment." "Payment for what?" Leo asked, confused. "For saving my life. For reminding me who I wanted to be. For being brave enough to knock on the door of a sad stranger and offer him food. You invested in me when I had nothing. Now I'm investing in you. That's how it works." Rosa was sobbing. Leo was trying not to cry but failing. I wasn't even trying to hide my tears anymore. "I'm going to make you proud, Mr. David," Leo said. "I'm going to study really hard and learn everything I can and build amazing things." "You already make me proud, buddy. You already do." The next 3 months were intense. We launched the full version of the software, added features that users requested, built a subscription model for businesses that wanted advanced analytics. Kept a free version for individuals and small operations because I remembered what it felt like to have nothing. The user base exploded. Small businesses across the country started using our program. Coffee shops tracking their inventory. Freelancers analyzing their client patterns. Local stores understanding their sales trends. Real people doing real work, and we were helping them. We hired carefully. I interviewed every single person myself. I didn't care about fancy degrees or prestigious companies on their resumes. I cared about whether they understood what we were building and why it mattered. Within 2 months, we had 20 employees. Within 3 months, 50. The office was small, but efficient. Everyone knew everyone. We had pizza, Fridays, and flexible hours. If someone's kid was sick, they worked from home. If someone needed mental health support, we made sure they got it. I paid everyone fairly, really fairly. Not minimum wage with promises of future stock options, real salaries that people could live on, benefits that actually helped. Because I remembered what it felt like to have nothing, and I never wanted anyone working for me to feel that fear. The company grew, but I didn't let it consume me like before. I worked hard, but I also went home. I had dinner with Rosa and Leo at least 3 times a week. I taught Leo advanced coding on weekends. I lived my life instead of sacrificing it to my ambition. And I moved, not back to a penthouse, not to some fancy neighborhood where people judged you by your car and your watch. I bought a normal house in a normal neighborhood, 3 bedrooms, a small yard, a garage. Nothing special, nothing impressive, just comfortable. The house next to mine was for sale. I bought that too, for Rosa and Leo. "You can't buy us a house," Rosa protested. "I'm not buying it for you. I'm buying it for me. I want my family close. You two are my family. This is what families do." They moved in a week later. Leo got his own room for the first time in his life. He decorated it with dinosaur posters and a desk where he could code. Rosa had a bedroom with a real bed, not a worn-out mattress on the floor. They had a backyard where Leo could play. Every morning, I'd see them. Leo would knock on my door before school, show me whatever project he was working on. Rosa would bring over coffee and we'd talk about the business, about life, about how strange and wonderful it was that we'd all found each other. The company kept growing. 6 months after launch, we were profitable, really profitable. Not billions like my old company, but millions. Enough to matter, enough to make a difference. I paid myself a reasonable salary. Not poverty wages, but not billions either. 200,000 a year. Enough to live comfortably and save for the future. The rest got reinvested in the company or shared with employees through profit sharing. My old self would have called me an idiot. Would have said I should be taking every penny I could get. But my old self was miserable. This version of me was happy. News started spreading in the tech industry. Articles got written about my comeback. About the guy who'd lost billions and rebuilt with a program created with an 8-year-old kid. Some publications wanted to paint it as a redemption story. Others wanted to dig into the drama with James. I declined most interviews. I didn't want fame, didn't want attention. I just wanted to build something good and live a good life. But I did one interview with a major tech magazine. They asked me about James, about the betrayal, about whether I wanted revenge. Revenge is empty, I told them. I learned that the hard way. James took my company, but he didn't take what actually mattered. He couldn't steal my ability to create, couldn't steal my knowledge or my work ethic. He just stole money and paper. And in doing that, he actually gave me a gift. A gift? The interviewer asked, skeptical. He destroyed the version of me that needed to be destroyed. The version that cared more about money than meaning, more about power than people. That version of me was toxic and empty. James killed him. And from those ashes, I became someone better. Someone who builds things that matter. Someone who values the right things. So, yeah, it was a gift. A painful, terrible gift, but a gift. The interview went viral. People resonated with the message. The company got even more attention, more users, more success. And then 3 months to the day after I'd launched the program, my phone rang. The number looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. I answered anyway. David? I knew that voice immediately. James. I hadn't heard from him since the day he destroyed my life. Hadn't wanted to. Every time I thought about him, I felt anger mixed with something worse. Disappointment. Grief for a friendship that had never actually been real. What do you want, James? His voice was shaky, desperate. I need to talk to you. I need help. You need help? The company. Your old company. It's falling apart. The board wants me out. We're hemorrhaging money. Investors are pulling out. I don't know what to do. David, I made a mistake. A huge mistake. I thought I could run it, but I can't. I'm not like you. I don't have your vision. I need your help. I let him talk. Let him beg. Let him explain how everything had gone wrong without me. How the products weren't connecting with users. How the team was falling apart. How the magic we'd built together couldn't exist without both of us. Part of me wanted to laugh. Wanted to say all the cruel things I'd imagined saying. Wanted to twist the knife and make him feel the pain he'd caused me. But I didn't. James, do you remember what you said to me in that boardroom? When they were kicking me out? David, You said the evidence was clear. You pretended to be disappointed in me. You looked me in the eye and lied while destroying everything I'd built. Everything we'd built together. I know I did. I was wrong. I was jealous and stupid, and I made a terrible mistake. You didn't make a mistake, James. You made a choice. A calculated choice that took months of planning. You chose to betray me, chose to steal from me, chose to ruin my reputation. Those weren't mistakes. Those were decisions. Please, David, I'll give you back the company. I'll step down. I'll do whatever you want. Just help me. For old time's sake. For old time's sake, I repeated. You mean for the sake of the friendship you destroyed? The trust you obliterated? Silence on the other end. I'm not going to help you, James, but I'm also not going to hurt you. I could destroy what's left of your reputation. I could tell everyone exactly what you did and how you did it. I could make sure you never work in this industry again. But I won't. You won't? No, because I'm not you. I'm not interested in revenge. I'm not interested in tearing people down to make myself feel better. You're going to have to live with what you did. You're going to have to face the consequences of your choices. And that's punishment enough. David. Goodbye, James. I hope you figure out who you want to be. I hope you learn from this. But I'm done. We're done. Don't call me again. I hung up. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. But I felt clean. Lighter. Like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't even realize was there. And now it was gone. Rosa had been standing in the doorway. I hadn't even heard her come in. You okay? She asked softly. Yeah, I actually am. That was him? The one who took everything? That was him. And you didn't help him. No. But I didn't hurt him either. I just let him go. Weighted team 1 he Revland. And then 40-77-100. With -70-70-77 please for members strings and on the medical. All the medical. And then from under 70-70-70-77. And then 47. Please 47. And then 40-70-70-77. She came over and hugged me. You're a good man, David Cole. Better than you used to be, I think. Definitely better than I used to be. Leo came running in from the backyard, covered in dirt, holding something. Mr. David, look what I found. I think it might be a fossil. It was a rock. Just a regular rock. But Leo's face was so excited, so full of wonder and possibility. That's really cool, buddy, I said, taking the rock and examining it seriously. We should research it, figure out if it's really a fossil or just a cool rock. Can we do it now? Absolutely. We spent the next hour looking up rock types and fossil identification online. The rock wasn't a fossil, just an interesting piece of limestone. But Leo didn't care. The search was the fun part. The learning. the discovery. That night, I lay in my regular bed, in my regular house, and thought about everything that had happened. About how I'd gone from billionaire to broke to building something new. About how I'd lost everything and found what actually mattered. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel at the venture capital firm. Congratulations, you just hit 1 million users. This is bigger than anyone projected. Great work, David. 1 million users. 1 million people using something I'd built with an 8-year-old kid. 1 million small businesses and individuals who were being helped by our program. The old me would have thrown a party, would have posted about it on social media, would have made sure everyone knew how successful I was. The new me just smiled and went to sleep. The next morning was Saturday. Leo knocked on my door early, like always. Mr. David, Mom made pancakes. Come eat with us. I went next door in my pajamas. Rosa had indeed made pancakes, a huge stack of them. We sat around their kitchen table, the three of us, eating breakfast and talking about nothing important. Leo told dinosaur facts. Rosa complained about a weird noise her car was making. I promised to look at it later, even though I knew nothing about cars. It was perfect. Completely, totally perfect. Mr. David? Leo said through a mouthful of pancake. Yeah, buddy? Are you happy now? Out of the mouths of children. This kid who'd saved my life was checking in on me, making sure I was okay, still caring even after I'd gone from nothing to something again. Yeah, Leo, I said, and my voice got thick. I'm really, really happy. Good. You smile a lot now. I like it when you smile. You have a nice smile. Rosa reached over and squeezed my hand. Didn't say anything, just squeezed. Later that day, I got another call, this one from a reporter at a major business magazine. They wanted to do a feature story about my comeback, about losing billions and rebuilding from nothing. What would you say was the key to your success? The reporter asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I think the key was failure, I said. Real, complete, devastating failure. Because when you lose everything, you find out what you're actually made of. You find out who really cares about you. And you get a chance to rebuild yourself into someone better. That's an interesting perspective. The first time I built a company, I was building it for the wrong reasons. For money, for power, for ego. And it was hollow, empty. When it got taken from me, I realized I didn't actually miss it that much. What I missed was the act of creation, the act of solving problems and helping people. So when I rebuilt, I did it right. I did it with purpose. And the boy, Leo, what role did he play? Leo saved my life. Not metaphorically, literally. When I moved into that apartment in Riverside, I was done. I was ready to give up. I didn't see a point in continuing. And then this 8-year-old kid knocked on my door and offered me food and reminded me that people could be kind, that life could have meaning beyond money. He didn't do it because he wanted something from me. He did it because that's who he is. Good, pure, kind. And he reminded me that I could be those things too. The article came out 2 weeks later. It was fair, honest. They told the story of my fall and rise without sensationalizing it. The headline was simple: The Billionaire Who Lost Everything and Found What Mattered. More press followed, more attention. The company kept growing, but I stayed grounded, kept living in my regular house, kept having dinner with Rosa and Leo, kept teaching, kept learning, kept being grateful for every single day. 6 months after the company launched, we had our first big corporate client. A Fortune 500 company wanted to license our technology for their small business division. The contract was worth $10 million. I called a company meeting. All 50 employees gathered in our small office. We just signed our first major corporate contract, I announced. $10 million. This is huge. This is what we've been working toward. Everyone cheered. But I want to do something different with this money. Yes, we'll reinvest some in the company. Yes, we'll give everyone bonuses. But I also want to start a scholarship fund. For kids like Leo. Kids who are brilliant, but don't have resources. Kids who could change the world if someone just gave them a chance. We're going to use our success to lift others up. Because that's what this company is about. Not just making money, making a difference. The room erupted. People were crying, hugging each other. This was a team that believed in something bigger than profit margins. Rosa was there, working in the back of the room on scheduling. She looked at me and mouthed, "Thank you." I mouthed back, "Thank you." Because none of this would exist without her kindness when I had nothing, without her son who saw potential in a broken man. That night, I sat in my backyard and looked at the stars. It was the same sky I'd looked at from my penthouse balcony years ago, but it looked different now, more beautiful, more real. My phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this David Cole?"
A woman's voice.
"Yes. My name is Susan. I was on the board of your old company, the one that James took from you." My stomach tightened. "Okay. I need to tell you something. Something I should have said a long time ago. We were wrong. I was wrong. James presented evidence that looked convincing, and we didn't question it hard enough. We didn't give you a chance to defend yourself properly. We just believed what we wanted to believe because James was very persuasive." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because the truth came out. We found documents James had hidden, evidence that he'd fabricated everything. We have proof now that you were innocent, that he framed you, and I'm calling to apologize. What we did to you was wrong. What I did was wrong. I'm sorry." I sat there in silence, processing. "David, are you still there?" "I'm here. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know that we know the truth now. Your reputation will be cleared. We're releasing a statement next week, acknowledging what really happened. James is being prosecuted for fraud, and if you want your company back, we'll find a way to make that happen. My old company, the one I'd built from nothing, the one I'd thought I'd lost forever, they were offering it back. A year ago, I would have jumped at that offer, would have done anything to get it back, to reclaim what was mine, to prove I'd been right all along. But now, I appreciate you telling me," I said slowly, "and I appreciate the apology, but I don't want the company back." "You don't?" "No. That company was built by someone I'm not anymore, someone I don't want to be. I've built something new, something better, something that actually matters to me. You can keep the old company, do something good with it, but I'm moving forward, not backward." Susan was quiet for a moment. "You've changed." "I had to. The old me was headed for disaster anyway. James just sped up the process. Well, for what it's worth, I've been following your new company. What you're building is impressive. Not just financially. The purpose behind it. The way you treat people. You're doing something special. I'm trying. That's all I can do. Try to be better every day." We hung up. I sat in my backyard for another hour, watching the stars, thinking about everything. The old me had died when James betrayed me. I'd mourned that death for months. But now I realized it wasn't something to mourn. It was something to celebrate. Because the person I'd become was so much better than the person I'd been. Monday morning, I walked into the office early. Leo was there, sitting at a desk in the corner. Rosa had started bringing him to work sometimes when school was out. He had his laptop open, working on something. "What are you building, buddy?" I asked. "A game. About dinosaurs, but also about coding. To teach other kids how to program while they play." "That's brilliant." "You think so?" "I know so. That's exactly the kind of thing the world needs." He grinned. "Will you help me with the hard parts?" "Always." We worked together for an hour before the rest of the team showed up, just like we'd done in that terrible apartment in Riverside, except now we had a nice office, resources, support. But the core was the same, A kid and a man who'd found each other when they both needed someone. The company continued to grow. We hit 5 million users, then 10 million. We expanded internationally, opened offices in 3 countries, hired hundreds of people, always fairly, always with purpose. I got offers to sell the company. Tech giants wanted to acquire us. Venture capitalists wanted to take us public. Every offer was for hundreds of millions of dollars. Some were for over $1 billion. I turned them all down. Why? Rachel asked me during one of our board meetings. You could be a billionaire again. Isn't that what you wanted? I was a billionaire before, I said. It didn't make me happy. It's about building something that matters. The second we prioritize profit over purpose, we lose what makes us special. So, what's your end game? To keep doing this, to keep helping people, to keep creating opportunities, to keep being someone my parents would be proud of. That's the end game. 3 years after I'd moved into that apartment in Riverside, 3 years after losing everything, I stood on a stage accepting an award, Tech Innovator of the Year. The ceremony was fancy, black tie, important people, the kind of event I used to live for. But I didn't go alone. I brought Rosa as my guest, and Leo, now 11 years old, sitting in the front row in a suit that Rosa had bought him for the occasion. When I accepted the award, I didn't talk about technology or innovation or business strategy. I talked about a woman who cleaned toilets and still had enough compassion to feed a stranger, about a boy who knocked on a door and offered kindness when he had every reason to be selfish, about how losing everything had actually saved me. Success isn't measured in money, I said to the room full of wealthy, powerful people. It's measured in impact, in lives changed, in kindness shown, in second chances given. 3 years ago, I had billions of dollars, and I was the poorest person in the world. Today, I have a fraction of that wealth, and I'm the richest man alive, because I have people who love me, people who believe in me, people who remind me every day what actually matters. The speech went viral. People resonated with it. The company got more attention, more users, more success. But the best moment of that night wasn't the award or the speech or the recognition. It was afterward when Leo ran up to me and hugged me and said, "That was awesome, Mr. David. You're famous." "Maybe a little," I laughed. "But you're still going to teach me coding tomorrow, right?" "Of course. Nothing's changing, buddy. Nothing important." "Good, because I have a new project idea. It's about helping small businesses with inventory management. I think it could work with our existing platform." This 11-year-old was pitching business ideas, and they were good ideas. "Let's build it," I said. "Together." 5 years after losing everything, the company was valued at $500 million. I owned 60%, which meant I was technically worth $300 million. Not billions, but more than enough. I still lived in the same house, still had dinner with Rosa and Leo multiple times a week, still taught coding to Leo, though increasingly he was teaching me things instead of the other way around. Leo was 13 now, already taking college-level computer science courses online, already contributing real code to the company, already being recognized as a prodigy. Universities were calling, offering him early admission. Tech companies were trying to recruit him for internships. Everyone wanted a piece of this brilliant kid. But Leo stayed grounded. Rosa made sure of that. And so did I. "You're going to have opportunities I never dreamed of," I told him one day. "But don't let them change who you are. Don't let success make you forget what matters." Because I forgot, and it almost destroyed me. "I won't forget," Leo said seriously. "I promise. You and Mom taught me better than that." I believed him. This kid had more wisdom at 13 than I'd had at 30. One evening, I was sitting in my backyard when my phone rang. It was James. I hadn't heard from him since that one call years ago. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "David," he said when I picked up. His voice was different, smaller, humbled. "James, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to call, but I needed to tell you something." "What?" "I'm sorry. Really? Truly sorry. What I did to you was unforgivable. I destroyed you for my own gain. I betrayed our friendship. I lied and cheated and stole. And I've been living with that guilt every single day since. I didn't say anything, just listened. I went to prison for 18 months, lost everything. Wife left me, friends abandoned me. I'm working as a junior developer now, making $40,000 a year, living in a tiny apartment. And you know what? I deserve it. I deserve all of it. But I'm trying to be better, trying to make amends where I can. So I'm calling to say I'm sorry. You don't have to forgive me. I don't expect you to. But you deserved to hear it. I thought about the old me, the one who would have gloated, who would have twisted the knife, who would have found satisfaction in his suffering. But I wasn't that person anymore. I appreciate you calling, James. I appreciate the apology, and I forgive you. You do? Yeah, not because you earned it, not because you deserve it, but because holding on to anger was poisoning me. Forgiveness isn't for you. It's for me. It's so I can move forward completely, so I can be at peace. James was crying. I could hear it in his voice. Thank you. But James, don't call again. I've forgiven you, but I don't want you in my life. I hope you find peace. I hope you become a better person, but do it without me. I understand. Thank you, David, for everything. I hung up and sat there feeling lighter than I had in years. The last piece of my old life had been released. I was truly free now. Rosa appeared at the fence between our yards. Was that him? Yeah. You okay? Better than okay. I'm free. She smiled. Come over. I made tamales. Leo wants to show you something he built. I went next door. Leo had created a new feature for our software, something that would help non-English speaking business owners use the program. He'd taught himself Spanish coding terminology and built a full translation layer. This is incredible, Leo, I said, reviewing his code. I figure if we're going to help people, we should help everyone, right? Not just English speakers. Right. Exactly right. We launched Leo's feature 2 weeks later. It opened our platform to millions of users who'd been excluded before. The response was overwhelming. Gratitude in a dozen languages. That night, sitting with Rosa and Leo in their living room, eating tamales and watching Leo explain his next project idea, I realized something. I'd lost everything. My money, my company, my reputation, my girlfriend, everything I thought defined me. And in losing everything, I'd found what actually mattered. Purpose, family, kindness, second chances, the opportunity to build something that helps people instead of just enriching myself. The empire I'd lost, it was never really mine. It was built on ego and ambition and emptiness. What I had now was real, built on love and trust and genuine human connection. I was David Cole. I used to be a billionaire. Now I was just a man who'd learned that wealth isn't measured in bank accounts. It's measured in the people who show up when you have nothing. In the kid who knocks on your door with a sandwich. In the woman who works herself to exhaustion and still finds energy to care about a stranger. And I wouldn't trade this life for anything. Not for all the billions in the world. Not for the biggest company, or the fanciest penthouse, or the most impressive title. Because I'd learned the truth that took losing everything to understand. You don't find out who you really are when you're on top of the world. You find out who you are when you hit bottom and someone offers you a hand up. And the person who offers that hand, that's your real family. That's your real wealth. That's what actually matters. Everything else is just noise. Dear friends, what you just saw is only one part of the bigger picture. In the next video, I'll reveal the twist no one saw coming, so make sure you're here when it drops. I would love to know what you would have done in this situation. Drop your thoughts below. I'll be reading every single comment. Thank you so much for watching. I love you so much, and don't forget to give this video a like, hit the subscribe button, and share with someone who needs to hear it.